Hello, and welcome to our StarCraft AI project, Swarmcraft AI. We have worked together to create a StarCraft AI that can play a 4-pool Zerg rushdown playstyle against the built-in game AI of StarCraft. It uses this program named WAPI, which is an API that allows someone to program an AI in StarCraft Brood War to play games using the basic game AI and more. This project also uses some of the basic tools provided by UL which is an award-winning StarCraft AI robot that is very good. So, why did we choose this project? This project was very interesting because it allowed us to use our knowledge of AI that we learned throughout our course to create something that works for a retail game and that you can actually play against in real life. Our AI was built to compete at a decent level against the built-in AI of StarCraft Brood War. It was a very fascinating and intriguing project also because it allowed us to gain experience in programming an AI for a retail game as well as understanding some of the more basic aspects of game programming and design. So what did we both work on, me and my partner? Kyle Avery, my partner, worked on the build order function, how everything is set up at the beginning, scouting AI, how our two scouts that we deploy search the map, and general debugging. I worked on the enemy location recordings, which in layman's terms means when a unit sees another unit, it figures out like what race it is, or is it an enemy, and also arming functionality and how we go about attacking our enemy troops, and also more debugging. So, what are the problems that we have to face for this project? The main problem this project attempts to solve is playing a high skill level game at a high enough level to beat the built-in StarCraft Brood War AI. Some of the other problems include deciding a build order for our AI to use, scouting the enemy base location, and sending units to fight the enemy.
Methodology.
On frame. Our first method is on frame, which is activated on every frame of the gameplay. The purpose of this method is to do a multitude of tasks, such as calling all of the auxiliary methods and making choices on producing buildings. It also checks certain global variables to be set, such as building variables. The on-frame method also checks if the building is being built at the current time. If it is, it stops the AI from building anything else until the action is performed. If no other checks are true and nothing else is being built, the AI will continue to build units if it has the resources. Build order. The build order method is used for producing units. It checks the supply to see if we need any more. If so, it decides to build overlords to increase the amount of supply we have for extra units. If we do not need increased supply, the AI will work on producing workers, if more are required. If not, it will continue to produce zerglings or hydralisks, if it has the materials to do so. Scout for enemy. This method does a very simple scouting job. If a scout has been designated by the AI, it will send that scout to the possible spawn locations, which are already known to us. If all spawn locations have already been searched, the bot will attempt to find a nearby square that has fog of war and scout it. The AI does this for 2 different scouts and ensures that they do not go to the same area. Send army. This algorithm does a very simple search on the map for nearby enemies using commands in BWAPI. The algorithm in this method will search for enemies that can attack our units, enemy depots, and normal enemy buildings. It will also prioritize them for attack in that order.
Sadly, all projects come to an end, and you can never finish everything. One of the major things that our bot couldn't get right was storing positions for our enemy to attack. We tried so many different ways to get this feature to work, and none of our attempts work. We tried making it track units, then we tried to make it track their locations and storing it in an array, but none of them seemed to work, sadly.
This video shows off our AI's build, order, and build strategy. As you can see, our AI starts out the game creating a spawning pool. It creates this spawning pool so that it can build army units, namely Zerglings. As it's building Zerglings, whenever it starts to approach a low value on supply, our AI will decide to build more overlords to increase that supply amount. Our AI will continue to build army units, as you are seeing, until it gets approximately 1,000 total mined minerals. After doing so, it will proceed to build a second hatchery, along with a Vespine gas extractor. When the second hatchery is built, it will start building more army units out of that hatchery, and will continue to extract gas from the Vespine gas extractor, to which it gets to the point where it has enough gas to produce a hydralisk den, in where our AI will then proceed to start building hydralisks, a more powerful army unit for destroying and ravaging enemy bases. As you can see, our AI runs off the strategy of using cheap and easy to obtain units to rush down the enemy in the early stages of the game. And if that proceeds to fail, our AI will continue to play the game and get to the point where it can build hydralisks and try to rush the enemy down with hydralisks instead of just the basic. This next video here showcases our scouting AI. Our scouting AI uses Zerglings, or in the late game hydralisks, to find the enemy's base or enemy units. We know at the start of the game the possible spawn locations of the enemy base, so our Zerglings will rush to find the enemy base at these potential spawn locations, and once it finds an enemy base, it will start attacking its buildings, and all other units will rush to the enemy base to destroy all of its buildings in a very fast manner. As you can see here, our Zerglings are enough to destroy this AI's base, and we win the game.
We did some testing with our bot, and by some testing, I mean 1,000 games of testing. After our 1,000 test game, we got a couple of really interesting numbers out of it. Our bot won 688 games out of 1,000, giving it an 88.8 win rate, which is pretty good if you ask me. Against Zerg, it won 335 out of the 275 games it played, giving it an 87% win rate. Against the Tyrann, it won 347 out of the 382 games it played, giving it a 90.8 win rate, even better. But against Protoss, it won 107 out of the 348 games it played, giving it only a sad 30.7% win rate. It does not do good against Protoss, as you can see. So what can we get from this? Like I said, the win-loss ratio we have is pretty good across the board, especially when we look at the non-Protoss games. With the strategy we have, it makes sense that the Protoss is the race that wins the most against us, because of how strong their units are with their enemy shields. They are very defensive, which allows them to get the upper hand against our rushdown strategy. And it's not like it takes a long time for them to build up their defenses. They're just really defensive at the start. For races other than Protoss, it's like throwing rocks at a hastily built glass house. But against Protoss, it's like throwing rocks at a well put together iron fortress. Not easy.
Swarmcraft AI's strengths and weaknesses. Our AI is very good at stopping the enemy in the very early game. However, our AI does have some large issues when it comes to dealing with defensive units like the Protoss. The strategy isn't fully fine-tuned and could use some change to make the bot fare better against it. As well, the bots sometimes take a very long time closing a game because it cannot detect previously seen units unless a scout or another unit approaches it, which could be fixed with the previous location storage if it was working. Maybe the AI would work on a better mid and late game as well.
In conclusion, we worked very hard on getting this bot to be as good as it can be. We do believe we were successful in this project as a whole, as we were able to get a 70% win rate with minimal bugs and crashes. If we had more time, we could focus on making a very intelligent build order algorithm and a more intelligent method for fighting our enemies and our formation. Both of these upgrades would definitely increase the win rate as well as the build time of our project. Thank you for watching.